Here's a quick and easy way to turn a basic block letter into a little bit more of an interesting block letter, just by changing your lines. So I'm starting out with a capital G that I wrote in a yellow marker, and now I'm tracing around the outside with a black Sharpie flip chart marker. So here's your basic block letter G. You can leave it like this if you'd like, but I'm going to make it a little bit more interesting just by adding a few things to the edges of this letter. So I'm starting out by adding wavy line or a scalloped or half circle on the edges here. And you can see on the right hand side, my hand is covering at the moment. I started out by creating kind of bigger bumps, and they're on the inside of the letter. And then on the top of the letter, I moved to outside of the letter. So those bumps or the wavy line is on the outside of the letter. And I started with bigger ones over to the right and then got smaller as it goes around the curve of the G. And now on top of the little crossbar of the G, I'm doing the same type of thing. The bumpy lines, wavy line on top of that line, so it's outside of the letter. And then I'm moving inside the letter over here on the left. And as you can see, I'm not really worried about making each bump the same size. There's some variation. It just makes it a little bit more visually interesting. And then on the bottom of the G, I moved outside of the letter, almost like those bumps or waves are kind of dripping outside of the letter. And then over on the right side, I moved inside of the letter. So this is kind of an experimental one where I'm trying all kinds of different things. So you can see what happens when, which look you prefer. Do you like it inside? Do you like it outside? Maybe you like a mix of both. There's all kinds of ways you can do it. It's really up to your creativity. If you are limited for space, it's good to do the bumps inside of the letter and keep the outside of the letter nice and clean. If you have a little bit more room or you're trying to fill up space, then that's a good time to expand outside of the letter. So to make your bumps or your wavy lines on the outside. And if there are certain places, things rarely work out perfectly. So sometimes you may have a little bit of space you need to fill in where other parts are a little tighter. Well, this is a good way to fill in that extra space. Maybe your spacing was a little bit off if you're doing a word and you have a little bit more space in between a couple letters than you like, so it doesn't look quite right. This is a way you can easily fix it without it looking like you're fixing it. It looks like it was a design decision and you did it on purpose, and it was creative and intentional and attractive. It's a way to just make your letters, and if you're doing full words, just a little bit more visually interesting and engaging. The other thing is you can see I'm going back and coloring in all of those bumps or waves or shapes, whatever you want to call them. I'm coloring them in so they're solid black. That is really important if you want your letters to be read from a distance. The bolder and darker they are, generally the easier they are to read. Like the yellow on the inside will be very difficult to read from a distance, even if it's even visible at all. So that's another thing to keep in mind when you're doing your letters. That's my cat enjoying this very much. So when you get done, you can color the inside of the letter in a solid color. I used yellow. You could start with a yellow or a darker color. I couldn't go lighter without that yellow being visible. Or you can just leave it. It's okay if you leave it in there. It won't be visible from a distance. If you don't like that look, you could always write a letter on one piece of paper and trace over it, or do that in pencil and then later erase it. But that's a simple way to take a basic block letter G and just give it a little bit more personality.